So thank you all for joining us today. I'm Joan Benz, the program coordinator for Sharp Again. Our presentation is Age Well with a Sharper Brain. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat box and we will answer them during the Q&A at the end of the presentation. We would like to note that the information in this presentation is for educational purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. Please see a licensed and qualified medical professional for your medical needs. Now I'd like to welcome and introduce our speakers, Steve Ledvina and Amybeth Whissel. Steve is a national board certified health and wellness coach focusing on brain health and Alzheimer's prevention. In his coaching practices, he works with individuals to implement lifestyle changes to prevent dementia, maintain their cognition, and improve their quality of life. Amybeth is a national board certified health and wellness coach, professional health supportive chef, and certified applied functional medicine practitioner. Thank you, Amybeth and Steve, for joining us today.
Thanks, Joan. Welcome, everyone. I see some familiar names. I see some new names, so it's exciting. All right, let's jump in. So first, I'll just give you a little background of Sharp Again for anybody who's new to us. So our mission is to educate, empower, and support everyone to take an active role in optimizing their cognitive health using a scientifically based multi-therapeutic approach. So you're going to see a really good view into what that is today. We're going to go over a lot of different elements of that. And then our vision, the reason we're doing this is that we envision a world where everyone with dementia or at risk for dementia can prevent it, treat it, and even reverse it, and where everyone has the ability to remain cognitively healthy throughout their lives. A lofty goal, but we are working towards it. All right, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to start just differentiating between what's normal aging, what kind of cognition changes can you expect in normal aging, and what's cognitive decline. What kind of, let's see, perfect. Let's just hear a little feedback. What is included, or what does cognitive decline look like? Cognitive decline includes, subjective cognitive impairment, mild cognitive impairment, and dementia all kind of fall under cognitive decline. And then we'll move into kind of the exciting part. What can we do now to stay sharp? How can we get started? Really closely related to what we can do now is going to be talking kind of at the same time about what are the root causes of memory loss? What are the longer term root causes? And then finally, and most importantly, the number one thing I want everyone to leave here with is one or more action steps. If you forgot almost all of the information that we talk about, but you leave with one thing and you actually put it into practice over the next few weeks, I think that's even more valuable than remembering every single word that we said and not making any concrete changes. So with that, let's jump in. So dementia is not normal aging. So what is normal aging? What would be included in normal cognition? So normal cognition, you might feel something a little bit like but there's no detectable changes in cognition through testing. You're not really noticing anything, maybe a little bit of slowing down, but it's not something significant that you or your family would notice. That includes like simple forgetfulness, a delay or slowing in recalling names, dates, events, trouble finding words in a conversation. You might notice like a slowdown in speed of processing information, learning, or problem solving. Memory processing begins to slow down at age 30, and that kind of continues at a slow, sort of predictable rate that you shouldn't be seeing like accelerating in normal cognition. Now, when normal cognition shifts into sort of like the pre-dementia phases, you can think of these. We start with subjective cognitive impairment. It's a really important one to note for everyone because it's when your brain changes that you're noticing. You're like, ooh, this doesn't really feel right. But maybe you talk to your doctor, maybe you talk to your spouse, and you don't see any, they're not seeing symptoms on a test, or nobody else in your life is noticing, but you feel like something's wrong. That's a real phase. That's something to take as an important sign. And even though that might not be showing up on a test, something important to note when it does finally start showing up on a test is when you start to call it mild cognitive impairment. And that will be an official diagnosis you can get. These are cognitive changes that start to become a concern to individuals or your family. And sort of what would fall into these. This is when you can still do sort of everything in your day, but it might, but you might, test a little slower or not on a test, on like a cognitive test. So this would be things like regularly forgetting appointments or conversations, regularly misplacing items. We might do that all once in a while, but if it becomes consistent and kind of starts being a problem in your life, if you're having trouble focusing, forgetting names of family members or friends, struggling to complete tasks you used to be able to do, like shopping, driving, doing your home accounting, all of those types of things. And then finally, dementia is when cognitive impairment starts to be severe enough to interfere with everyday activities. And if here's like a really simple little test for yourself for if you start to worry about your cognition. Normal aging is forgetting where your glasses are, and abnormal or cognitive decline is kind of starting to forget what your glasses are used for. So that's like an easy tool you can use. And really the goal here with even talking about this is to just give everybody a sense of, oh, I don't really need to be worrying about my brain. These kind of like slowing down in cognition, slowing down and like remembering things, or I occasionally forget. I was really worried about that, but maybe that does sound more like normal cognition. Or, ooh, I'm starting to have some changes that might fall under that subjective cognitive impairment, and maybe I want to start making some more changes and putting a little more attention to this. So here's just another visual that might give you drive home the point a little bit. So normal aging is this kind of line. Preclinical is that subjective cognitive impairment. That's where it might be a little steeper decline in cognition over time, and then, but not necessarily get you a diagnosis yet. Mild cognitive impairment would be a little bit steeper, and then dementia is a little steeper. Now, the whole reason of talking about it like this is that our goal here today, and your goal with your own brain health, is if we can prevent it altogether and stay on that normal aging line, awesome. If we're already in kind of this phase, let's slow it down, let's stop it and see if we can get back to that normal aging state. And same thing with mild cognitive impairment. Can we stop, slow, delay? Can we recover cognition? Is really what we at Sharpingen work towards, and what we're hoping for. So with that, Amybeth. Amybeth, you are muted.
Thank you. There was a street sweeper going by, very noisy. So in the past, when you would go to your doctor and receive an Alzheimer's diagnosis or a dementia-based diagnosis, the most you could hope for is the doctor would say, go home and get your affairs in order. Or perhaps they might say, there's a pharmaceutical medication that you can try, and this will potentially improve your cognition a little, or slow things down, or just sort of hold you in a holding pattern where you are. And we're really fortunate because we're around long enough to see that a prevention mindset is really where we should have our focus. We know that if we shift towards some of these causes that we've pinpointed, then there can be a slowing of this progression, potentially even a reversal or preventing it altogether. And I have to say, it's very gratifying to see some younger faces here today, even if perhaps you might be attending because you want to help a parent or a loved one that's a little bit older. But ultimately, it's really good you're here because this is really valuable information for you as well. You know, we often think about our bodies as something that we need to take care of. We need to go to the gym. We need to drink more water. We should probably get more sleep. But we don't really take an active role generally in caring for our brains until something happens, like you find your keys in the refrigerator, or you suddenly find yourself lost on the way to someplace you go all the time. So again, as I said, we now know the conditions that drive dementia, and we can take actionable steps. So there are many causes, of course, linked to memory loss in lifestyle. And in spite of our genetics, perhaps, there are things, as we said, that we can do. So if you downloaded your Age Well with a Sharper Brain webinar quiz with its accompanying worksheets, we would love to encourage you to jot things down as you hear them, as we go through the presentation. If something resonates with you, even if it's something you heard a million times before, or maybe you hear something new, we would really encourage you to jot that down. And we're going to come back to it later to figure out what your action steps and what your takeaways will be.
Perfect. Yeah, and this is such a valuable part. Every time I give this presentation, I think of new things where I'm like, oh yeah, I could be doing that a little better. So even if you've heard this before, really the goal here is to be kind of identifying those changes that we might make. All right, so what are we talking about? Lifestyle factors for brain health. This is going to be kind of the core of the presentation, but these are also sort of root causes of memory loss, of cognitive decline. So lifestyle factors for brain health, these are all going to really contribute to your brain health. So sleep, 7 to 9 hours of sleep is really the guideline. I think we've had a culture of like, ooh, grind, getting your work done. The less sleep you get, the more productive you are. That's kind of slowly going away. That 7 to 9 hours is extremely important. And one thing to note here with the 7 to 9 hours is it's time actually asleep. So I know that I've used kind of a sleep tracker, and it shows that for me to get 7 hours of sleep, I need to be trying to sleep for about 8 hours and 15 minutes, 8.5 hours, because it takes a little bit of time to go to bed. I wake up in the middle of the night a little bit, all those sorts of things. So then nutrition, there's a million ways you can refine and optimize nutrition, but the banner headline is lots of vegetables and a Mediterranean style whole foods diet is really the guiding principle. Exercise. Almost nobody is getting kind of the full benefit of all of the types of exercise. This is something that every time I talk about it, I'm like, ooh, I could be getting a little more value here. So we're talking about aerobic. So anything that gets your heart rate up, we kind of think of like running, swimming, biking as that, but it could be dancing or something different. So anything you get that gets your heart rate up. We want to be building muscle. We want to be building strength as well. So weight training, resistance training, those types of things. And then as importantly is that stability and flexibility. One, because it helps with all the other types. It has a lot of brain-body connection benefits, but two, it's going to really help prevent falls, which is a really important piece to keeping our brain health long-term. Falls can be very detrimental. Mental activity. So keeping our brain active, engaging in new hobbies, any brain training, that sort of thing, very important. Stress, meditation, stress management techniques, just overall managing, trying to reduce stressors that we can manage, and trying to better deal with and handle stressors that we can't remove. And then finally, maintaining a strong social support network, remaining socially active. That can be anything from really impactful, meals and gatherings together to just like being friendly and getting to know the barista at your local coffee shop or the cashier that checks you out at the grocery store. Those big interactions or those small interactions can, foster brain health just as much as the big ones oftentimes. So those lifestyle factors are what we're really going to be talking a lot about today, but we wanted to just touch on some other root causes of memory loss and that are really covered in depth throughout the year in our other deep dive webinars where we bring in an expert. If you're curious about any of these topics, go to the Sharp Again YouTube page or our website, and you can almost certainly find a webinar or an article on each of these. So toxins have a big effect on our brain. You can find them in food, water, air, in your work or at home, or if you drive a lot, another place to look is your car. Hormonal imbalances have a big impact on our brain and body. That can be anything from your thyroid hormone to the sex hormones or others. Inflammation is a big issue on its own, but it's also a factor in a lot of these other pieces. So that could be coming from something like low-level infections, mold, or toxins in your environment. Heavy metal toxicity from mercury, lead, and other metals can have a really big effect on your cognition. And so getting tested for those periodically can be an important factor in maintaining cognitive health. Trauma, both physical trauma, like concussions or repeated head injuries, and emotional trauma, if those are left untreated, they can have a big effect over time. And then finally, medications, side effects or effects. Really want to stress with that one, never make any changes without talking to your physician first. But if you are noticing some cognitive effects, that might be a conversation to have and bring up with your doctor, just saying, hey, I'm noticing this or that. Could any of these be playing a role, and work through that with them? So all of those are a little more complicated than what we're going to talk about today. They often involve a doctor or some other healthcare professional to work through them. But if you're curious about them, there's lots of information. So what can we all do now?
Okay, so
Hey, listen. It's about the brain.
let's see. Okay, so we are going to talk first about whole foods, which this is not going to be a surprise to anyone. You've probably heard it a million times before, and many times we know what we're supposed to do, but it can be challenging. Whole foods are incredibly important for your brain. Whole, unprocessed foods, because they have high nutrient density and they provide essential vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that can support your cognitive function. They also can help reduce inflammation. So diets that are rich in whole foods, like the Mediterranean diet or the DASH diet, are linked to improved cognitive health. And the reason is, as I said, they contribute to the processes that the body needs to undergo in order to function efficiently. And when you eat things such as ultra processed foods, you are sort of doing double damage in a sense. You're not only getting something that's devoid of nutrients, but in addition, the body, there's a toll. It has to borrow from these nutrients in order to process these substances. So it's like a double negative in a sense. And in addition, these ultra processed foods often have seed oils and highly inflammatory ingredients. Previously, it used to be that humans got about a 4-to-1 ratio of omega-3 to omega-6 fats. And now we're at something crazy between like 16 and 22-to-1, and some say even higher. And these are all things that contribute to inflammation. So if you can avoid seed oils and you can lean towards whole unprocessed foods, you're going to be doing your brain a huge favor. We're going to talk a little bit too about ways that we might be able to do that. But one of my favorites is just simply adding one more vegetable in. And maybe you start just at breakfast. If you normally have eggs, you might fold it into an omelet. Or if you, maybe you want to add one more veg at dinner or something else to your lunch. But that's one way to start. You want to make sure that you get plenty of leafy greens and nuts like walnuts and fatty fish. These are all great sources of omega-3. Some examples of seed oils would be basically vegetable oil, sunflower oil, safflower, rapeseed, or canola. I tend to steer people towards coconut oil or obviously olive oil and good quality avocado oil. These are not quite as processed. You want to make sure that you're looking for something that's pressed. And then, as I said, ultra processed foods, they're probably just as damaging as smoking and have an effect, obviously, on cognition, but also stroke and heart disease and diabetes as well. So, and then the last tip would be that since it's a nice warming season here in the East, if it is by you, maybe finding your favorite soup or stew recipe and using that as a base, and then switching up the vegetables so that you're, kind of getting a little bit more diversity. Diversity is really key, and trying not to eat the same thing all the time. Okay, let's talk about hydration. This is really important because even a little bit of dehydration can reduce your cognitive function by at least 2%. Your brain is composed of about 75 to 85% water. And so even this mild dehydration can cause brain fog. It can cause mood imbalances. And for sure, it can cause some difficulty with memory and with brain function. So another thing that I want to point out is that in an older population, when you have dehydration, you're going to see greater incidence of UTIs. And UTIs, as well as dehydration, can lead to gait instability. So people have a little bit of a balance issue when their electrolytes are off. And as Steve was mentioning before, a fall can often be the sort of tipping point in a regression that can speed up after a fall. So the more we're able to avoid a fall, the better. And having proper hydration is one way that we can do this. Obviously, it's essential too for the brain function. And then we're going to move to fasting, which is really beneficial. We want to make sure first to point out that, well, first I want to say a 12-hour fast might sound a little bit intimidating if you don't normally do that. But if you consider, like, perhaps you finish your main meal in the evening around 7 p.m., it simply means you don't eat anything for the rest of the day, and then you pick up your next meal 7 o'clock the next morning. That's your 12-hour fast. If you are diabetic or you have any blood sugar issues whatsoever, we strongly encourage you to, you need to reach out to your doctor and speak with them first. But there's a good amount of research that shows that some intermittent fasting can help to regulate blood sugar. And also, when you go to bed at night, it's sort of like there's a cleaning crew that comes. Think of your brain as the city, and sleep is like sanitation. So when you're fasting overnight, you're going to get better sleep, and the brain is going to be able to clean up a little bit better in terms of detoxification overnight. So fasting is really important to help with that process, which is called autophagy. And it will also help, as I said, to regulate blood sugar. Anything you want to add, Steve?
No, I think that was excellent. So this is kind of, we just threw a lot of information between the lifestyle factors, the other causes, the first few things. So everybody just take a breath. We're going to do a few more here. And just want to encourage everybody to be just kind of brainstorming, writing down anything that sounds like they may want to ask a question later, or maybe when we go through the kind of making a plan at the end, you might have something you want to make a goal around, anything like that. So next piece, which Amybeth just did the perfect lead into, was sleep. I talked about it a little bit before, 7 to 8 hours of sleep. How are we going to get there? What does 7 to 8 hours look like? Well, one night of sleep has been shown to raise the amyloid beta, which is one of the hallmark molecules of Alzheimer's disease in our brain, to detectable levels after just one night. So that's one little piece that really drives home how important sleep is. Sleep is also going to make every other piece of the puzzle easier. If you're well slept, it's going to, your hunger and feeling full hormones are going to be more well regulated. So eating better is going to be easier. It's going to be a little easier to exercise. Your cortisol levels are going to be better regulated. So your stress management is going to be a little easier. All of those things factor in. So we're going to want to be being on a sleep routine as much as possible. Waking up and going to bed at about the same time every night gives our body the best chance to kind of create that 24-hour sleep cycle. Reinforcing that with a daily routine of like prepping for bed, making sure that we're creating a sleep-friendly environment, not exercising right before we go to bed, maybe keep that a few hours early, keeping caffeine consumption to as early in the day as we can, so caffeine's out of our system by the time we're going to bed. Consider turning off like screens or anything stressful before bed. If you're watching really stressful news, maybe shut that down an hour or two before you go to sleep. If you're working right up until you go to sleep, maybe try and give yourself a little bit of buffer there to start to wind down. We really want to be creating a brain space, a head space, and a physical environment that all encourages sleep. In addition to sleep, exercise is extremely important. So I think kind of sleep and exercise are like the wonder drugs, but exercise is the one you'll hear everybody in the medical profession talk about. Like, we always are looking for this miracle pill, and we actually have it, and it's just exercise. And the reason we don't all use it is because it's a lot harder to get an exercise routine going than just taking a pill. But it has all of these amazing benefits. Improves blood flow, oxygen and blood flow to the brain. Vascular health is an extremely important part of keeping our brain health going. Keeping those blood vessels and the ability to get oxygen and nutrients is a big factor in maintaining cognition over time. What are we talking about with exercise? We kind of all know exercise. We sort of know what we should be doing, but we want, and I hinted at it before, we want to be getting, about 150 minutes of exercise a week. So that's 2.5 hours, 150 to 180. You want to be balancing that out between cardio health, fitness, any of that activity that gets your heart rate up. So that's going to be different for everybody. And that's why I say it that way. You kind of know, okay, my heart rate is a little high, my breathing's a little bit going a little more during this activity. That's going to be cardio. So that for you could be a brisk walk. That could be a jog. That could be biking. That could be dancing. It might be gardening vigorously. Just find those things. And the best exercise for you is the one that you are actually going to do. I think something that can be get caught up, or when people get caught up, it can go by the wayside, is the joy aspect of this. We shouldn't be just grinding away, trying to just check all these boxes to make sure we're super healthy. Your own joy creation is an important part of your brain health. So if pickleball or dancing or gardening or something like that is a fun way for you to get exercise, make that a part of your program. Weight training, I think we all sort of know exercise, we think of that, but building muscle, building strength is a really, really important contributor to long-term brain health. For a number of reasons. The one that I think is, or the two that I think are really tangible, is like the stronger we are, the better we are going to be able to do all of our daily activities, the longer we're going to be able to do everything we love. And then the other piece is that the more muscle we have, the easier our body can handle like blood glucose. The muscle is sort of where and if we're exercising and we have muscle, it's kind of that extra place that our body can stash the sugar in our bloodstream. And so that just makes the nutrition piece even easier. So building a little muscle gives us kind of that reservoir, and then continually exercising uses that blood glucose, the sugar in our bloodstream, when it gets put into our muscles every day. So final piece is that stability, flexibility. We talked about it before, really encouraging that brain-body connection, encouraging our stability so that we don't fall, and so that we can just keep doing everything we want to do. Stability, flexibility, strength, these are all kind of like abstract things. What can be really helpful is saying, okay, 10 years from now, I would still like to be able to bend down to put in the plants I love every spring, or to pick up my granddaughter, or to, what are those activities that 5-10 years from now you really want to be able to do? And then think of how strong do you need to be? How steady do you need to be? How flexible do you need to be? And building you can even just build your workout routine around those things. Like, you don't need to be pretending like you're going to run a marathon if your goal is to be able to be strong enough to pick up your grandkid. That's a good goal just by itself, and you can build the strength routine around that.
Can I just interject 1 second, Steve?
Please.
One thing I wanted to note, since we were talking about balanced blood sugar, is that there are a number of studies that have shown, even if, I think that doing 30 to 60 minutes of exercise and then sitting all day long is, they sort of counter each other. And so you don't want to negate the hard work you've put in. But in terms of starting small and also keeping balanced blood sugar, if very shortly after you eat a meal, you go out for a 15-minute walk, or say you're stuck in the office, maybe you do the stairs a couple of times. I know you've heard this before, but what I like to do is every couple of hours, I stand up at my desk and I do 3 sets of 10 squats, especially after I've eaten, because I'm watching my blood sugar, and your body will put that glucose into those big muscles and allow you to keep a steadier state. So you may just want to consider that in terms of the timing of your workout. It's not to say go out and, jog 5 miles after you eat a bowl of pasta, but just to keep in mind that your blood sugar can be positively affected by timing your activity with it.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Just like we need to exercise the body, we need to keep using our brains. So that one of the parts that keeps our brains healthy is that continually creating new neural connections. So when we learn new information, when we're engaged, when we might be learning a new language or an instrument or problem solving, that all stimulates the brain, and that stimulation is helpful to maintaining a healthy brain over time. We talk a lot about all the different ways that you could exercise your brain, but really commonly people talk about, something like, if you've ever heard of Brain HQ or brain training or brain games, people really focus on that, and that can be a really helpful piece of the puzzle if you enjoy that, or if you want to make that a part of your routine. Again, I'm going to say it's sort of a similar thing I said with exercise. If you're just banging your head against the wall doing those types of things, it's better to find a joyful way of doing it, something that you'll maintain for years. And so combining, picking up an old hobby, or picking up an instrument you used to play, any of those types of things with that joy, and the way you kind of know that it's exercising your brain is if it's a little hard. If you kind of know when your brain is bumping up against a difficult thing and you go, oh, this isn't like as easy as all the everyday stuff that I've mastered over decades. This is a little bit difficult. My brain is kind of pushing up against its limits, its abilities. If you're getting that feeling and you're searching for that feeling, you're doing a great job. And that's exactly what we want to be seeing with the like challenging your brain mental exercise piece.
Okay, so let's continue with things that we can do and talk about the importance of social connection and socializing with loved ones, whether that is, family members or perhaps your chosen family or friends. The importance of socialization is even more apparent now post-pandemic than it ever was before. We see so much chronic illness coming from the contributing factor of this isolation that many people experience. We're inherently tribal creatures, and we seek out the company and companionship of one another. And even if that means that you may be an introvert and you maybe don't like to be in large social gatherings or frequent social interactions, but it doesn't have to be going to a huge dinner party or hosting people at your home or anything like that. I believe, as Steve mentioned before, maybe it's the conversation with a clerk that you see a couple times a week that you've become friendly with, and maybe it's someone that you pass on the walk to the train or to work every morning. These interactions matter. These are moments of connection that are really important. And I think that seeking that out when you don't have it, there are lots of different ways to do it. We can even piggyback off what Steve was saying about fitness. I know that I've seen a lot of studies come through about pickleball and how that can be a really great workout, but also it's very social and it's fun. So it ticks off tons of boxes for people who enjoy it. There is, as we said, a difference between introversion and loneliness, and obviously a correlation between social isolation and your health. So we want to encourage those interactions whenever they're possible, and you want to try to make sure that you put those into your day, whatever that piece looks like for you. Okay, so next we're going to talk a little bit about.
Just to touch on, I think you had such a good point there. I think one of the pieces with making changes and even just hearing about the possible changes is you can start to get a little overwhelmed. And a good thing to realize is these all don't have to be different changes. They can be you might get 4 or 5 benefits from one new activity. Maybe you're starting to exercise with friends, or you're playing something like pickleball, which is probably like stress management, exercise, socialization, and mental stimulation all in one activity. Like those are, it's helpful to realize that this can be a couple high impact changes, not like 10 or 15, things you have to worry about.
And that's great when those things can do, double, triple duty, then you can tick off more boxes and feel less overwhelmed. So stress, I know stress is something that we talk about a lot. I think it can sort of feel nebulous, like people feel it in different ways, whether they feel it physically or mentally, but good stress is I have a job that I need to get to, and my alarm goes off and I need to do all of these things and, get here and do that. And those are all stresses that allow us, they're temporary. They don't last for a long time, and they push us to do the things that we need to do. So it's a positive stressor. Whereas obviously something that is chronic, something that is unaddressed and long-term, can start to push down on the body and exert itself in physical ways. So it's important to distinguish between what is good stress and what is chronic or harmful stress. and then figure out what the root cause of your stress is and then address it. Some people, meditation is a go-to, right? Like you should meditate. That's a great way to reduce stress. I can't tell you as a meditator how many people I have talked to who have said, I can't do it. I think I'm doing it wrong. My brain races. It's all over the place. To them, I would say, try not to judge your practice if you think that it's for you, but also meditation can look very different for different people. Maybe your version of meditation is going for a walk and counting your steps up to 50 and then starting over every time you hit 50, which would then, get some physical movement involved. But essentially what it is doing is bringing mindfulness to you. It is making you aware of what's going on around you and grounding you in the present moment. Those are the types of activities we want you to think about. So it doesn't need to be something formal like a meditation practice or something like that. It could just be, what is it that brings you peace? Maybe it's coloring in an adult coloring book, or sorry about that. Essentially though, creating maybe a new habit or finding an old habit that you used to enjoy. Maybe you used to do watercolor paint, or you used to crochet or anything like that. Look into old things that you used to, old hobbies that you used to enjoy that maybe you can resurrect, or look into, you could go on Pinterest and look up different ideas for stress relief, crafts, activities like that. So creating a new way to de-stress would be a really great idea. And then we want to say, I want to preface this last part by saying, you've heard so much and it probably does feel a little bit overwhelming. We're not saying that you need to check off something in every single box. This is really just being able to walk away with a few pragmatic action steps, things that you think that you will actually do that light you up a little bit, because the time to do this is now. As I said before, don't wait until you put your keys in the fridge, or you are frequently, experiencing something that feels like subjective decline. So it's important to identify what you can do now. Let's see. So we want to create a sustainable change. I apologize, I have a lot of outside noise. We want to create a sustainable change. So this is speaking to the point of making your goal pragmatic. You may have heard of SMART goals before, that they need to be specific, they should be measurable, they should be achievable and relevant, and then they should be time bound. So instead of saying, I'm going to walk every day 10,000 steps, but you've basically just been, I don't know, just moving around your house every day and not even going for a walk, then you might say to yourself, I'm going to aim for 3,000, or I'm going to aim for 5,000. Or instead of saying, I'm going to make sure that I'm eating vegetables every single day at every single meal, maybe you do what we discussed before. Like maybe you're just adding in one vegetable to one meal a day for a week. And, a water tracker. These are all good ideas. Like, and I think actually asking you all some of your ideas is going to be really great way to find out what you took from it, and give ideas to other folks too about how they can proceed. Is there anything you want to add, Steve?
No, I think.
Okay, so if you want to take out your sheet, if you don't have one, that's fine. Grab a piece of paper and a pen, and you want to divide it. What we want to do is make, as I said, a goal that you think is realistic and relevant. We want to make it as specific as possible. And then we're going to maybe break it down into action steps so that you can, it feels a little less overwhelming and more achievable. Let's see, some of the other ideas I had. I did want to also circle back to the blood sugar and nutrition piece and say that if you can make sure that each time you eat, you have a little bit of fiber, fat, and protein in every meal, that's going to help you to have more balanced blood sugar. So that could be a goal. Like I said, the walking meditation could be a goal, using a water tracker or going out and getting a 32-ounce bottle, figuring out how much you need to drink every day, and then filling that and draining it by the end of each day. And the last thing I want to add about hydration is it's really important to be drinking water throughout the day, as opposed to just chugging 32 ounces of water in the morning and then chugging 32 ounces of water in the afternoon, because essentially you will just pee it all out. Your body needs to take up hydration on a cellular level a little at a time. So it's important to spread it out. It's just a little tidbit there. Okay, so do we want to open it up to talk about goals?
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone want to share in the chat what a goal that they would like to try? Have anybody feeling brave?
I don't see any yet.
Yeah, we can talk a little bit. Might be helpful to put some goals out there and talk through, some action steps. So you could pick anything from what we talked about today. That could be, let's say I want to sleep. I'm sleeping, 6.5 hours right now. I used to be sleeping, 8, but I'd like to get back to that. This may be a good goal to kind of model, because that's kind of true for me at the moment.
Carol Henry wants to add more vegetables to her diet, and Kristen wants to increase protein in her daily meals. A lot of people want to increase water throughout the day.
Okay.
Oh, great. Turn off cell phone earlier. Good.
So what I would ask then is for you to take that next step. Like for Kristen, in terms of adding protein to your daily meals, it might help for you to have a target of how much you want to add. So maybe it's not necessarily that you're weighing it, but you say, I'm not getting enough protein at breakfast. I'm pretty sure I need a little bit more protein in the morning. So instead of just having a piece of toast on the fly, I'm going to have 2 hard-boiled eggs, and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of Greek yogurt and some dill seasoning and make like an egg salad and put that on a piece of toast with some greens. So bam, got some extra vegetables. You got additional protein in the eggs and the Greek yogurt, and you have a pretty hearty breakfast, and it'll probably hold you over for a little bit longer. So I'm hoping that helps to add a little bit more specificity to it. John, I like this. Sorry, he said he's including multiple short exercise programs, or consolidating bits of each to create a routine that he enjoys on a regular basis. I think that's amazing. I use something that is timed exercise programs, and after a while I got bored with the 30 or 45-minute ones. So I'm like, oh, I'll do a 15-minute core, and then later I'll do like a 15-minute weight one. But I think that's a brilliant way to customize it to what you enjoy.
I'm noticing a couple of cell phone related ones, and so this is a good example of making working to what is your goal with this? Be specific with it. Oh, I don't want to use my phone when I wake up in the morning, or I don't want to use my phone for more than an hour a day or 4 hours a day, whatever that is. And then it can be really helpful. Our phones there's a lot of energy and money by tech companies built into you picking your phone up. So putting that a little extra effort into the action steps of saying, okay, when I wake up, I'm going to leave my phone in the drawer next to my bed if it's a morning thing, or if it's an evening thing, okay, I'm going to set my phone on this counter with the charger, and then I'm going to go cook dinner or go for a walk or whatever that thing you might do instead of the phone. It can be helpful to be specific about the goal, and then just create those 1, 2, 3 specific action steps so that you have a plan for the next time it happens, the next time you are in a moment when you wish you weren't on your phone, but maybe you're not thinking in that second you wish you weren't on your phone. It only comes 45 minutes later after you've been on your phone for an hour and said, wait, where did that time that I wish I had gone for a walk go?
There's also some research. I know that it seems like morning and evening are probably the toughest time for people scrolling on their phones, but there's quite a bit of research in the neurological realm that talks about sort of priming your brain with dopamine in the morning. When you are looking at these things, you're sort of priming your brain to then seek this out all day long. So that's something to keep in mind, that the longer you can hold off in the morning from not necessarily your phone, but from social media, the better your cognition and probably your mood throughout the day is going to be.
All right. Just with an eye on the time, this is really good. I'm going to jump into some closing thoughts and then hopefully leave a couple minutes for your questions. So, a few programming updates by Sharp again. So we have this awesome program called the Foundational Coaching Program. The next one is coming up October 22nd. It's going to run, the group coaching sessions are going to be at 10 a.m. Eastern time. And the deadline to register is this coming Monday, October 7th. This program includes 6 group coaching sessions. So you're going to be making changes along and learning along with people who are caring and working towards similar things. Those 6 sessions, you're going to have a one-on-one coaching session before them to kind of meet your coach. Your coach will get to know your, health and brain health goals, and you'll work out a plan together. And then at the end, kind of do that same thing again. Take everything you worked on in those group coaching sessions and make a plan for going forward. All of that, plus each week there will be kind of an educational module that you'll watch some videos online, but then do some work in the group coaching session on those things. Really focuses on nutrition, exercise, stress, and sleep, and where simple lifestyle changes can improve brain health. But you can bring other changes to the group if you're working on things, or if you have a physician or something that's recommended a change, you can make that change alongside the support of the group. All of that, remarkably, only $99. We work really hard to make this affordable and accessible to everyone. The program value is $450 or even more. And so we would really invite anybody who's interested in making, kind of the first steps, or if you're already working on it and you could just use the support of a group, sign up for that. We would love to see you there. We're also gauging interest in the longer term re-implementation of the Maintain Your Brain coaching program. If you have interest in this, email us at info@sharpagain.org. What's included in that, it's kind of the follow-on from the foundation group. It would be 2 75-minute group coaching sessions every month, mini courses exclusively for that group on topics such as like toxins, inflammation, heavy metals, and more. So we're just gauging interest in that right now. Next steps, that foundation group coaching program would be a great next step. If you registered for this, you're going to be on our email list. Keep an eye out for future webinars. Visit sharpagain.org. Refer somebody to one of our programs. Maybe that program or webinars would be good for a friend of yours or a family member that you love. Send them to us. Email us any questions you have. And then The only reason we can do any of this for free today and at such an affordable price is because of our wonderful donors. So if you have interest in donating, go to sharpagain.org. And if you have interest in becoming one of our sponsors, just email us at info@sharpagain.org. All right. I'll leave this up for a second. If you signed up with a different email or somebody signed you up, you could use this QR code to sign up for our email list. And then the next one is going to be Q&A if anybody has any questions. And I know we're coming up on time here, so don't feel bad if you have to drop off for something else, but I will stay on for a minute or two after the hour to answer any questions anybody has. All right, Q&A. This is our emails, our Sharp Again emails. So if you want to jot those down and email either of us individually, and I'll open it up for questions. Thanks, everybody.
And feel free to unmute yourself if you'd like to ask a question, or put it in the chat. And just as a reminder, I will be sending out a recap email tomorrow with the link to the recording and an update on our programs, as well as resources, links to some of the topics that we touched on today.
Stop sharing.
Oops, cancel. Sorry, I'm trying to screw things up here.
That's great. Do we have any in the chat that I know we kind of answered this in the chat, but somebody said which comes first, the fall or dehydration? Amybeth, do you want to answer that since you kind of
I would encourage dehydration can lead to dizziness, and dehydration can also lead to a UTI, which can lead to dizziness. So I would say the dehydration piece, and also, that's an easy fix. So trying to really boost hydration can help the person to have more stable electrolytes and stable gait so that they are steadier on their feet and can avoid the fall. We have someone who's going to see us in the course. That's exciting. Happy to have you here for a precursor.
Do you have a question, Joe? No. Okay.
I'm also
No question. Not yet, anyway.
Okay. I'm noticing a question from earlier. Can you give examples of seed oils? The most common one that you're going to see is canola. Canola is just like a refined version of what's called rapeseed. So you'll see rapeseed in other countries. Canola oil is just like that, what we have in the US. Other ones are like, you'll see grapeseed, safflower. I don't know, Amybeth, if you have other ones off the top of your head that are common.
Sunflower, and then the sort of vague vegetable.
Sure. Yeah, when you just see like vegetable oil, that's
corn oil.
Certainly a seed oil. Yep. And so just like the olive oils, the coconut oils, we're looking for more of those for many reasons. But big kind of banner headlines are the omegas that Amybeth talked about and the level of processing. So the less processed we can get, generally, the better. Something like canola oil, if you want to Google that and see how many processing steps there are and how many steps removed it is from the actual thing pressed out of the seed, that's an interesting way to burn a half an hour of time.
So are nut oils also not good? Walnut, peanut?
I
don't really know much about those.
They tend to be what's the word I want? Like the volatility in terms of how long they stay fresh. They would absolutely need to be refrigerated. You want to smell it, make sure it hasn't gone off. I tend to use those oils more for finishing because they don't have a high smoke point. So smoke point is when you may know, but when you put oil into a pan, if it starts to smoke, if it's gotten to the point of heating to the point where it smokes, then you have just basically created free radicals and oxidation of the oil. So you want to make sure that you're using, some people say don't even cook with olive oil unless you're cooking on very low heat. But I think finishing with olive oil is a great way to get it in. You know, maybe you make some roasted broccoli and when you're done, you just dress it with a little olive oil, or you're using it on your salad or adding it to veg. You can even put olive oil into a smoothie, especially if you have any kind of motility troubles. The what's it called? The flavonoids that are in naturally occurring will help kind of jumpstart things.
I'm seeing, yeah, so Enley is saying safflower oil. It's as with every single thing you will ever see in nutrition, it's complex. So the best rule of thumb is the whole foods. Second best rule of thumb is probably not too much of anything. So like something like you're saying, safflower oil, high in omega-6s, exactly. We need omega-6s. It's just that balance that Amybeth is talking about. Omega-3s are generally the thing in shorter supply. Certainly some oils are going to be better than others.
For sure.
Anything else?
I
Oh,
think
Jen, that's wonderful. So we have an educator with us who got a lot of great value out of it, and she's planning, her and her students have been taking notes and plan to use some of the tips and things that we discussed. And that is very encouraging to hear. I think
Don't-
I don't have, oh my goodness. I don't have a problem with tahini, Marilyn. I usually use it to dress things. I believe the seeds are a good source.
sesame seed,
Pardon? Yes.
sesame seed.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Well, we wish you well in your recovery, Joe. Hope you're recovering well and fully.
I am. It's just slow. It takes a
Well-
lot of patience.
Well, thank you, Steve and Amybeth. This was most enlightening.
Yeah, thank you
And,
everybody for joining today, and we really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you at many more of our webinars and programs.
Okay, I'm going to stop our recording.
Perfect. Thanks.